Hi everybody, this is David Cook from the design team here at NewsWhip. Time for another one of our design teardowns, and today I'm going to talk you through our real-time alerts. So this was a enhanced version of our alerts tool that we built last year. Not a huge project, took about 4 to 6 sprints, I think, maybe at max, and it was really just about tweaking some of our alerts and adding some new features that would make them more useful for PR people. In NewsWhip, we found an increasing demand amongst the PR vertical for Spike and its real-time news, but we found that their needs for alerts were a little bit different to our traditional journalist needs. So we wanted to tweak them a little bit and add some new functionality that would be really helpful for them in their day-to-day tasks. So to get started, I think I'll just jump into Spike. So here we have a very classic news feed focused on coronavirus. Just threw this together. It's fairly broad. It's kind of useful. You'll see later on why I chose a fairly broad search, probably a lot broader than most of our PR users would need. You can see some of the articles are very recent, so 2 hours ago, and they're already getting huge amounts of interaction. So over 8,000, nearly 9,000 interactions in 3 hours would be huge. And obviously, with the challenges that they're facing in the UK at the moment, it's not a surprise. So what we have up here is the ability to create a new alert. This is a feed, so it's just one I just saved, so there's no new alerts on it. So this brings up the standard alert creation modal. One of the things that we did, which was sort of helpful for all our users and then part of a sort of broader strategy, was for the first time we now allow users to create their searches for any network. So in the past, if you had a search that was saved to a specific network like Twitter or Facebook, you could only make an alert on that one network. You'd have to make a duplicate of the search with a different network to create multiple alerts. But now a user can come in here and regardless of what network is saved with the search, they have the ability to create an alert. And when I say this is part of a broader strategy, our goal is to get to a stage where you could create alerts regardless of the search. So you could actually set up an alert for an independent search. It wouldn't necessarily have to be one that you saved. So that helps people in PR who tend to do more ad hoc searches than they do in the media space. So I'll leave it at web, it's definitely the most popular. Next down we have our 2 types of alerts. So the scheduled alerts, where they're sort of more traditional existing ones, and they allow users to basically create a feed, almost like a digest of the search news that they get delivered. And the most common use case for that is people to get it delivered to them in the morning, usually on their way or just as they're getting into work, so they can glance through that maybe on their phones and they get a sort of very quick update on what's happened in their world before they get into the office. Because as soon as they get into the office, certainly for both PR and media, morning times are usually fairly chaotic and they like to be able to get up to date as quickly as possible. So we didn't do a huge amount of tweaking to that. We tweaked the kind of layout of it and we removed some of the previous options, and now you've got a selection of it. There were a lot more options before, which we realized when we looked at the data people weren't using, so we tried to narrow that down. We have added the activation and pause, which I'll talk about in a second. So let's go into the real-time alerts, which is kind of where we did the biggest changes. So there was an existing real-time alert system in place. So we wanted to incorporate that into here, and we spent a little bit of time investigating how we would go about doing it, what could we do to the existing one. Unfortunately, the system, the AI that was running those alerts was built a good few years ago, and there was nobody on our team, or in fact I don't think there was anybody in the company who had been part of that original build. So the devs had to dive into that, get an understanding, look through the wikis and get figure out how it worked. They got that understanding. We learned, what it was doing, and then we also learned that it was a bit of a black box, and the thoughts of going in there and rebuilding or making significant tweaks to that was going to be too costly. We didn't have the scope for that in this project. So what we do is we rejigged it, and we call it popular articles, because what it's doing, it's searching for the articles that we believe will be most interesting to you, and then they're sent throughout the day. So it isn't a scheduled thing. It does get triggered by certain events, but those events are run by an algorithm, and it's not something that the user can really override. But it's great if you just want to be kept up to date on a certain topic and you're not necessarily really concerned getting urgent news. So that's being put in there, and we put a little bit of help text in to help people understand it. The first big thing that we added is this next one. So when any article is published, and this was specifically for PR people who are tracking a particular topic and they want to know if anything happens. So this allows them, as soon as any article is published in their search, so it's in a topic that they're interested in, they're going to get an email or a Slack message set directly to them. This works for a lot of PR people who use Spike to track a very sort of niche or specific area of focus. So you might be looking not just a sort of broader topic like fashion, but you might be looking at fashion or footwear or couture or something like that. It's quite niche, and you'll want to know whenever something is being published. Or equally as common is if you're in a crisis situation and you're absolutely desperately want to make sure you don't miss any articles. So that's very popular. That was one of the biggest improvements we made. The downside of something like that, as I'll show you here, when you have a broad search like we have for COVID-19, you could end up turning this on and getting huge amounts of emails. And we didn't want the users to have to go through the pain of turning it on, then waiting to see emails coming in every couple of seconds, which in this case would happen. So we put in a way of calculating what we expect. It's not 100% accurate, but it's some indication to the users of what level of alerts they're going to get. So in this scenario, you could obviously see that's way too much. Nobody wants to get that many articles, because each one of them will trigger an email. There is some bundling going on, so if they're happening very, very quickly, we do bundle them together. So, but anyway, it's a good indication to the user. So that's been quite a helpful thing that we put in. And then the next stage down from that is allowing the users, this is kind of more of an advanced setting. So this allows the user to set their own custom threshold. So if you want to be alerted more about sort of bigger stories that are happening, not necessarily everything, but some of the stuff that is probably going to need your attention, this allows you to do that. So you can come in here, you can set whatever of the metrics you want. These are the three most popular metrics that people create their alerts based on. So if we look at total interactions, and if we look at this feed, if we put in say 1,000, or let's say when an article reads a custom threshold of 100 total interactions, they're going to get 63 articles. So again, that's probably quite a lot. If you put that up to 1,000, you're down to about 16 articles. So the user can make a more informed decision as to which threshold they want to set this at. Finally, they have the ability to send it to email or to Slack. I don't have the Slack integration, but you can set it up so that it emails a specific channel in Slack. Very helpful for some of our teams who use Slack then to notify colleagues or editors about big events. And then finally, the ability to add the alert name. So this was quite significant. It doesn't seem significant now, but what we've done in this update is allow users to create multiple searches based on the same search. In the past, you could only create one alert for each individual search, which was fine for journalists who may be only tracking specific beats. But for PR people who might want to track multiple things and have varying levels of interest, so if you're in a crisis, you want to know everything. If you're just monitoring, you might only want to know big events. So this allows them to create multiple alerts of the same search, but of course that then requires you to have a certain name. So you might want to have Corona Daily or Corona Hourly or whatever you want. And then we also added in the ability to active and pause states for the searches. So this was done for two reasons. One, because the customer service team often set up these alerts for new users who are about to join our tool, but they don't necessarily want those alerts to be triggered before the user is comfortable in the tool. So they can set them up, pause them, and then either instruct the user when they join the tool as to how to unpause it, because it's quite simple, or they unpause it themselves. And then the other reason as well is that we'd have people setting up alerts for a specific event, let's say the Oscars, where they want to track everything over a couple of days, but when that event is over, they want to pause it. They don't want to delete it because they might use it again the next Oscars or some other event, and this allows them to stop and start it. And also if they're going on holiday and they don't want to be getting notifications while they're on holiday. So that's it. Pretty simple stuff. It was a nice project to work on. It was a really nice mix of front end thinking, design, and also some good back end development as well. So it was a nice unifying project for everybody in the team to work together on. Thanks, guys.